Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Haripriye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya eva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Namam Vishnupadaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Because of all your prayers, the PPT has come back up.
So welcome everyone for today's session. It's nice to see all of you back, or nice to be back. So today we will just go over the topic of how to invite, because there is the big event happening in India. What is the big event? Ayodhya Shri Ram Mandir in Ayodhya. Of course, it's spiritually very significant. So people, according to their level of consciousness, they may actually look at the event in different angles. Some people some people may look at victory of one religion or another. Some people may so according to the level of consciousness that we have, we look at the same event in varieties of ways. We don't see things as they are, but we see things as we are. So we have a lens, we have a conditioned mind, and we have a certain nature, so that acts as a lens or a filter, and then we see a certain event according to what the level of our consciousness is. Like for example, when Krishna entered the arena in Mathura, it's a beautiful verse in the Bhagavatam which discusses about how different people look at Krishna differently. Even though it's the same, young boy, Krishna, who's entering the arena, according to one's disposition, everybody saw Krishna differently. So Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, Ye yata mam prapajyanti, tam stataiva bhajamyaham, mama vartmana vartanti manushya partha sarvasaha. So Krishna says, as one approaches me, I reward them accordingly. Or Krishna, what does he mean by rewarding? I reciprocate accordingly. So as we approach Krishna, Krishna reciprocates accordingly. So if so, different people saw differently. So can somebody guess what did Kamsa, when he looked at Krishna, what did Krishna look like to him? Death. Who said that? Yeah. So for Kamsa, Krishna looked like death personified. Because Kamsa was always fearful of Krishna, thinking that how Krishna would kill him actually. So he was thinking Krishna from that angle, from fear and from the perspective of death. So Krishna appeared as death. And then for all of Kamsa's friends who were assembled there to basically see, how basically the whole plan was to actually invite Krishna and then, somehow make some arrangements so that Krishna and Balaram and all the cowherd men and including Nanda Maharaj and everybody can be killed. So that was the overall plan. But then of course Krishna came and then all the plan actually got completely foiled. So at the same time, the devotees, the Gopas, his friends, saw him as a dear friend. So like that, each of them, according to their disposition, they saw Krishna differently. The elderly Gopas, Nanda Maharaj, and they saw Krishna as their loving child. Like that, the Bhagavatam actually describes all the different ways, different people looked at Krishna. So similarly, we also look at these events, from according to the level of consciousness that we are in. But from a spiritual standpoint, it's a very important, I would say, it's an important milestone that, there is a temple for Lord Rama which is, re-established at the original place in Ayodhya. Of course, there is a lot of history behind what happened. There is a lot of bloodshed and there is a lot of, horrible things that have happened before. And now, the temple is being re-established. And the significance of, of course, one thing is the temple being established. And of course, the other thing is also to invite Lord Ram into our heart. Lord Ram, it's one, it would be incomplete if we just establish temples and then think that our duty is over. It will be very, very incomplete. Right? It's not just about establishing, ultimately, why are temples there? What is the real purpose of temple? Of course, the murti is there, and then the puja is there, and so on and so forth. But the ultimate purpose is so that actually we can have a transformation of heart. Like how, there are hospitals, right, everywhere, which is to treat the pain of the body. Right? If they have any anomaly in the body or any pain in the body, then we are actually taken to the hospital. And then we are treated, and then, hopefully, by the treatment, whatever the anomaly is, it's fixed. So similarly, temples are there to actually treat the pain of the mind and pain of the mind and heart. So temples can be considered also as spiritual hospitals, where, and what is the medicine that is given in the temple? It is a spiritual sound vibration. Like how when you go to hospital, you are given medicine and then you are actually recovering, you are cured of the disease. So similarly, temple, or especially places where actually spiritual medicine is given, where actually our pain of the mind and heart are are actually fixed or actually cured. And one of the primary medicines that's given is the mantra, which is a primary spiritual medicine which is given in these spiritual hospitals. So, so there's a purpose of why the temples are there, in our whole tradition. It's not just, over the period of time, it has become ritualistic, where people just go do some puja and then they have some material desires, right? I mean, when we are, still, many of us, we used to go to the temple after attending the Gita sessions, maybe your mindset has changed a little bit. But before that, we all used to go to the temple and do what? Bargain. Yeah, transaction. We would, make a deal. Right, okay. I will do upavas on these days. Days, and then so basically we would go with the intention to fulfill our material desires. And then we would do pujas, and then we would do all kinds of austerities, and we would do, many other things associated with the temple, so that our material desires can be fulfilled. And and it becomes very ritualistic. So basically, it's all transaction. There is no devotion there. It all becomes ritualistic. And the another reason why it also becomes ritualistic is because there is lack of knowledge, lack of spiritual knowledge, and lack of education. When there is no education and when there is only practice, then what happens is everything becomes ritualistic, and that's what the state of India is today. Because people don't have knowledge, people don't have the wisdom from the Vedas. They have kind of lost that wisdom from the Vedas. So what happens is we just do everything because, that's how the tradition is, that's how the culture is, and that's how our parents did. And we may never be able to answer questions, especially we ourselves had some questions to our parents. They would have not been able to answer such question. Why are we doing this? Why are we doing that? They would not have been able to answer the question because the knowledge is lost. The knowledge is lost. So everything then becomes ritualistic. So establishing this temple is a very important milestone, but even more important than that is actually reawakening this, reawakening this need for transcendental knowledge that has to go with, the religious performances as well. So that was one of the main purpose of the temple is also actually to give education. It was also educational centers. And so knowledge plus practice, that leads to transformation of our heart. And that's what we want actually. We want transformation of heart. We want rectification of our character. Ultimately, if we want to establish Lord Ram in our heart, or what they call as Ram Rajya, of course, establishing temples is an important part of it, but even going beyond that is to actually live by the principles that was given by Lord Ram. And to live, by those principles, one has to first transform their heart. And for that, we need spiritual education. It all starts from spiritual education, and combining with spiritual practice, then it becomes this transformation of the heart. So that is what is required for today, because I would say the establishing this temple actually is the beginning of the journey. It's not the end of the, of course, some people may think that this is the end of course it is, it's a very big milestone. Some people may think that this is the end of the journey, but I would say it's a beginning of the journey, where establishing this temple and when it becomes a center of excellence, center for disseminating spiritual knowledge, when it becomes a center where people come and take shelter of Lord Rama and his teachings, and experience it through spiritual knowledge and practice, then the real transformation happens. Then what happens is when people's heart gets transformed, then the whole society becomes, you know, the whole society becomes, more cultured. The whole society becomes more cultured. So what is a cultured society? It's called Sanskriti, right? So in the Ramayana, there are three kinds of societies that is being discussed here, or you can say three important places that's being discussed here. One is Ayodhya. Anybody think about any other place that's discussed in the Ramayana? Kishkinda. Okay, Lanka. Right. And especially distinct places. If you really think about distinct places, there are three cities or three regions. One is Ayodhya, the other one is Kishkinda, the other one is Lanka. Of course, physically these are distinct places, right? But even consciousness-wise, according to how people lived and what their consciousness was, there are very distinct places, even according to consciousness. So people in Ayodhya, they had a certain kind of mindset, they had a certain kind of lifestyle. People in Kishkinda, they had a certain kind of mindset and lifestyle. And people in Lanka had their own mindset and lifestyle. So which one do you prefer? Ayodhya. I hope that was the answer. Yeah, we want Ayodhya. Why do we want a society like Ayodhya? Why do we want a culture that was practiced in Ayodhya?
Dharmic.
It was dharmic. What else? Right. Of course, Lord Rama was ruling. I mean, that's a good point. Yeah, we want, we want either God or godly men to rule, right? And then automatically the subjects will become godly, right? So it was a very cultured society, highly refined society, where when they say dharma, it means that they were following the principles of what dharma means. What? Yeah, following certain rules, that's correct. I mean, there is a lot of rules that's given in the different parts of the Shastra, but it's generally dharma is represented by 4 legs of a bull. It's represented by a bull, and there are 4 legs for the bull, and it stands for those 4 principles actually, in essence. I'm saying, of course, there are many details to that. Anybody know what are the 4 legs of the bull represent?
Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha.
Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha, or 4 goals of life. Here I'm talking about the 4 facets of dharma. Huh? Courteousness, yes. It's means compassion. Or daya. Daya is one thing. Daya is ahimsa. It's one and the same, yes.
Dhanam.
Truthfulness. Truthfulness, yes. Daya, compassion, truthfulness. What are the other 2 legs represent?
Dana, giving nature.
Giving nature, yeah, I mean, I think
Compassion includes.
Yeah, compassion includes, but what are the 2 others? Austerity and cleanliness. Austerity and cleanliness. So austerity, cleanliness, compassion and truthfulness. So these are the 4 legs of dharma. A cultural society practices these things. Not only they practice these things, but they also are inclined towards spirituality. They are very much focused on spirituality because the king himself, here of course Lord Rama, and the other Ikshvaku kings also, they are all very much focused on spirituality. So these are the 4 legs. Think about it. If a society is following this truthfulness, everybody speaks the truth, how will the society be? Right? Somebody was sharing this experiment, that can you leave any of your valuables in the park and just come back, forget and come back home? Will it be there? No, it won't be there. So, if the society functions such high, it's such a refined society, right? If everybody practices truthfulness, Everybody is compassionate. When they can, let's say, you go to somebody's home and you share your problem and they really care about you. That's compassion. So, a highly cultured society is, or a highly evolved society, or a spiritual society is where actually people not just only think of themselves or their own enjoyment. Actually, they think about the welfare of others. And really, our welfare can only happen when we follow, at least, we have to follow the principles of Dharma. But our real welfare happens when we actually go to the spiritual platform. That is the real welfare, right? And as Prabhupada says, the first chapter of Bhagavad Gita, one's welfare, one's self-interest. First of all, we don't even know what is the self. Then how you can define what is self-interest? One's self-interest is really lies in the interest of Lord Vishnu. That is our real self-interest in pleasing or serving Lord Vishnu. Anyway, so in a very cultural society like Ayodhya, where people were following the dharmic principles and also spiritual principles, all these four legs of dharma were just visible everywhere. People used to care about others, not just care only about themselves. They used to live a life of sacrifice. They used to live a life of sacrifice. Happiness comes from living a life of sacrifice or living a life of indulgence. Option 1 or option 2? Option 1. It's counterintuitive, right?
Yes.
We generally think, it's intuitive. We feel that, okay, if I indulge my senses and sense objects, then I'll get happiness. But that's not what Krishna says. Can you give me a Bhagavad Gita, Prabhu? Krishna says, Ehi samparshja bhoga dukkha yone evate adi antavanta kaunteye nateshu ramate buddha. Happiness actually, of course, in this verse Krishna talks in the negative. He says, Ehi samparshja bhoga dukkha yona evate. You know what is yona means? Seat or womb. Dukkha yona evate. So Krishna says, Ehi samparshja bhoga. When we try to indulge ourselves, senses with the sense objects, we think that it will give a happiness, but Krishna says that is the womb of misery. Dukkha yone evati. Adi antavanta kaunte. Because it has a beginning and an end. When we indulge our senses with the sense objects, the experience has a beginning and an end. And that doesn't really, lead us to ultimate satisfaction that we're looking for. And then nateshu ramate buddha, wise does not delight in them. Krishna says. So, but where is happiness? It's not in sense enjoyment. It's not in sense indulgence. So where is happiness then? So in the third chapter, Krishna says very beautifully, he says, it's there in sacrifice. It's there in yajna, actually. It's there in giving. It's there in service. And especially unmotivated, uninterrupted service to the Supreme. That's where happiness lies. And the third chapter, is full of so many beautiful verses actually, which, one verse I just want to quickly look at. Yeah, it's beautiful actually, these verses, especially the third chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Yeah. Anyway, I'll just read one verse and then, my dear Arjuna, this is the third chapter of Bhagavad Gita, 16th verse. My dear Arjuna, one who does not follow in human life the cycle of sacrifice. Krishna establishes the principle of yajna, the cycle of sacrifice, which we'll go into detail another time when we read the Bhagavad Gita. Third chapter of Bhagavad Gita, he says, one who does not follow this cycle of sacrifice established by the Vedas, he says, suddenly leads a life full of sin. And he says, living only for the satisfaction of senses. Have you seen people like that? It's all over. It's all over in the world. Living only for the satisfaction of the senses, such a person lives in vain. So living only for the satisfaction of senses, actually we live in vain. And what if this whole society is doing that? So that is the society, which is, which is epitomized by Kishkinda, where the culture was that everybody lived for their own satisfaction. And that's how, the important pastime, right? Where Sugriva, he got the help from Lord Ram, right? And then he was able to get his kingdom back and get his wife back, and so on and so forth. And then what did he do next? And then of course it was rainy season, and then Lord Ram said, okay, we will, take a break during the rainy season. And then after the rainy season, it was Sugriva's, opportunity to actually serve Lord Ram and keep his side of the promise. But what did Sugriva end up doing? He went on a full blast party mode. So Sugriva went, he received so much of help from Lord Ram. Of course, Lord is the Supreme Lord. And then Lord Ram is waiting for him. The rain season has just ended and is waiting for him, Sugriva, to come actually and to fulfill his side of the promise, to actually serve Lord Ram, help Lord Ram get Sita. But then what is Sugriva doing? He is in complete forgetfulness. And how does that forgetfulness happens? Because he is in complete bhoga. He is in complete enjoyment actually. He is, in party mode. And in fact, Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, Bhogeshwarya prasaktanam taya bharata chetasam vyavasayatmika buddhi samadhavana vidiyate. Krishna says the resolute determination for devotional service does not take place. When one is attracted to bhoga and aishwarya, so one cannot strictly follow the one cannot be a tivra bhakti yogi. One is enamored by bhoga and aishwarya. So he got distracted and he was in complete his own world, enjoying with his kingdom, opulence and everything. And then Lord Ram is so distraught, and then who gets angry? Lakshman. He gets really angry. Of course, Lakshman here represents Guru. He gets really angry and then he immediately goes. And then he would have, Lord Ram said, just go and, shake him up a little bit so that he can come to his senses, So sometimes we are also, of course, but Sugriva was a devotee. So, but even before Lakshmana came, Hanuman had told him, hey, you know what, I think you should get more serious about going back to, you should, end this enjoyment program and then you should go back to Lord Ram and see how you can serve. So he had already put some sense in him, and then when Lakshmana came, Sugriva was totally, petrified. He was really petrified. But then somehow Tara went and she composed Lakshmana, and immediately Sugriva got into action. So the society in Ayodhya, they were focused on service. They were motivated by pure devotional service. They wanted to serve Lord Ram. They wanted to please Lord Ram. They were always, fully devoted to Lord Ram and fully absorbed in devotional service to Lord Ram. That is the culture in Ayodhya. And then the culture in Kishkinda was, of course, they were favorable to bhakti, but they were also, enjoying materially. But there is the opportunity to grow in the process of bhakti. So Sugriva had an important valuable lesson there in that pastime, in that incident. And of course there is always opportunity to become more and more fixed in devotional service. So in Kishkinda, the general mood is, I want to think about my own enjoyment. And then in Lanka, that is the worst of the category, where it's not only I will care about my enjoyment, but I will also not care about others, and I will do it at the cost of exploiting others and destruction of others. So that is the mentality that was actually there in Lanka. No, it's my phone. Sorry. So that was the mentality in. That was the mentality in Lanka. So, establishing Ram Rajya means, of course, the first step is to establish him as a king, and coming on the temple is the first step, but then there is a lot more that needs to be covered, which is establishing the Lord in the heart as the master in everyone's heart. And when we are able to cultivate a society like Ayodhya, then that is the real establishment of Ram Rajya. So, and the best way to actually do that is to actually engage in the process of Bhakti Yoga. How can we establish Ram Rajya in our own hearts? Right? Ram Rajya will only come externally when we establish Ram Rajya in our own hearts. So how can we establish? So when we say Ram Rajya, meaning like how Vibhishan asked Lord Rama, right? So Lord Rama was giving benediction to all the three of brothers, and of course Ravana had in his own set of for getting power and for domination and so on and so forth, for basically satisfying his own false ego. But what did Vibhishana ask Lord Brahma? Benediction. Yeah, let me always follow the principles of Dharma. Let me always follow the principles of Dharma, irrespective of how the situation is. So that is what Vibhishan's request to Lord Brahma was. So, so now we have to establish that in our heart, we have to transform our heart. And the best way to transform our heart is to follow the process of Bhakti Yoga. And the acronym for that is ABCD. So that's a simplified formula for you. A stands for association. B stands for books, transcendental books. And C stands for chanting. And D stands for diet. Yeah, or prasadam. And E stands for, is the trick question. I don't think I have revealed it. Yeah, when you follow ABCD, then you'll certainly, experience enjoyment. Enjoy. You don't have to go after enjoyment. Enjoyment will come after you. You want enjoyment to, you want to go after enjoyment, or you want enjoyment to come after you? Yeah, enjoy. You want enjoyment to automatically come, right? Because when you go after enjoyment, enjoyment will disappear. That's the rule. But when you act in a way, especially when you act in the process of Bhakti Yoga, then enjoyment will automatically come as a byproduct. Enjoyment or fulfillment. Fulfillment is a better word. You feel satisfied and fulfilled, and you feel contented. So all these different experiences will have automatically when we engage in the devotional service to Supreme Lord. But when we go after enjoyment, what happens? The enjoyment dissipates. It disappears. It just escapes. It's never there. Enjoyment is never there. So when we do ABC, E for engagement of seva. E for engagement of seva. So when we engage in this process of Bhakti Yoga, then what happens is slowly our hearts gets transformed, and not naturally will experience happiness at a spiritual level. Happiness will come searching for us. We will experience happiness automatically as a byproduct. Anyway, those are some initial thoughts. So now we'll get into the class. It's going to be a long class, right? You told me you can go till, because this is a long weekend, we can go till almost like 11 or 12, right? Anyway, if you have some complaints, you can talk to us. Anyway, that's just some initial thoughts. Anybody has any thoughts or questions or comments on that? So we have a lot more work to do. So this is not the end of it, this is the beginning of it. So we have a lot more work to do. Any comments, any questions, any reflections, anything you liked so far? Yes.
I think this is the first time I heard Ramayana in this sense where you look at it as three different societies and three different levels of
Consciousness.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Prabhu. Any other points? Yes, Sundaranada
I also liked how you mentioned that building the Ram temple is only the beginning. A significant milestone, but for many of us, unless there is transformation in the heart, that significant milestone may not mean much in our own life. So I like that point.
Thank you, Prabhu. Okay, so we will quickly go through some lessons from the different portions of Ramayana, so that it can help us, in building up our own character and our own spiritual practices, and then we can get inspired by these different lessons we get from the great epic Ramayana. Yeah. So first, of course, who was the king of Ayodhya at that time? Dasharath. Okay. And who are the principal queens of Dasharath? Right. Very good. Very good. So Kaushalya, Kaikeyi, and Sumitra. And of course, the four children were born. Of course. Yeah, Rama, Lakshmana, Bharata and Shatrugna. So Rama was born to Kaushalya. And who are the sons of Sumitra?
Lakshman and Shatrugna.
Yeah, Shatrugna. Yeah, Lakshmana and Shatrugna. And then Kaikeyi's son was Bharata. Of course, these great, of course, the Lord appeared because the demigods had actually went and prayed to Lord Vishnu, lying on the causal ocean. The demigods had gone and prayed that the demons are giving them a lot of troubles. And so the Lord decided to appear as Lord Rama. And of course, along with him came all his other incarnations. His whole entourage came, which is Bharat, Lakshmana and Shatrugna. Now, interestingly, what does a Rama mean? Yeah? Yeah, that's correct. You have good sight actually. Yeah. So, Rama actually means the source of all pleasure. That is what Rama means. In fact, when we chant the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, Krishna means what? Oh, that's a question. There's nothing on the slideshow. Krishna means all attractive. Krishna means all attractive, supreme source. Rama means the source of all pleasure. So that is what Rama means. So the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra has both these names. Says Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So in fact, in 522 in the Bhagavad Gita, Prabhupada very nicely gives the name, the meaning of the name Rama. So he quotes Padma Purana. He says, Ramante yogino anante satyananda chidatmani iti Rama padena sho parabrahma vidiyati. So he says the mystics derive unlimited transcendental pleasure from the absolute truth. The mystics means the devotees. The devotees or the mystics derive unlimited transcendental pleasure from the absolute truth, and therefore the supreme absolute truth, the personality of Godhead, is also known as Rama. Now, one of the disciples during a conversation, Prabhupada was asked, who does Rama really mean? And Prabhupada said, according to, who you want it to be. So he said it can be Lord Ramachandra, it can be Lord Balaram. Balaram is considered Krishna and Balaram, right? So Balaram is considered to be the source of spiritual strength. So, or it can also be Radha Raman. Radha Raman means is another deity manifestation of Krishna, where Krishna is the supreme enjoyer, like that. So according to our attitude, it can actually mean all the different personalities, either Lord Ramachandra or Balaram or even Radharaman, like that. So the mystics derive unlimited transcendental pleasure by meditating and reciting the name Rama. So that's why we have in the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. This is the part of Bhakti Yoga process. When we chant the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, automatically we will come in touch with all attractive Krishna. We are also coming in touch with, the source of all bliss, which is Rama. So when we chant the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, naturally we become happy. And especially when we chant it with full focus and attention, that is called as quality chanting. When we are able to chant with full quality, chanting and with full attention, then what happens is we naturally become happy. So you don't have to go anywhere to search for happiness. All you have to do is chant the Hare Krishna Mahamantra with full attention. And then when we get in touch with the Nama, then automatically all the effects come about. And then Bharata, what does Bharata means? Bhara means something weighty, something heavy. So Bharata means one who actually takes on the responsibility, but without any facility or enjoyment. Without any facility, yes.
His name means like that because when he had to take over the kingdom, he didn't really stay on the throne or anything. He just went to a nearby forest and stayed in the underground where he secluded huts. So,
Right.
And the kingdoms are very big buildings, but he didn't really take any facility.
Right, exactly. So Bharata took all the responsibility but didn't take any facility for enjoyment. Right? So who do you work for? Who do you work for in your office? Are you sure? Company, boss, okay. The boss says from tomorrow, CEO, okay. But then the boss says, from tomorrow I'm not going to pay you. Will you work for the boss?
No.
So are you really working for the boss?
No.
Then what are you working for? Money. Yeah, exchange of resources, right? Right. Exchange of resources. That's what we are working for, right? Because we get that remuneration. That's why we are working for. We are not working for the boss. We are not working for the company. We are working for remuneration, right? But here you can see Bharat. That Bharat asked for any remuneration, but he took all the responsibility on his shoulders, but then didn't avail any facility, didn't avail any resources for his own enjoyment. So that is the level of sacrifice that Bharat showed. That is the level of sacrifice that Bharat showed. He took all the responsibilities, but didn't ask for any payment. So that is the level of sacrifice that Bharat had. So that is what Bhara. Bhara means heavy. So he took all the responsibilities, but he never expected anything in return. And he didn't even accept even the required amount of facility or enjoyment for a king. Even the basic minimum requirements he did not accept. He just lived a life of austerity, accepting all the responsibilities. So that's how much he was devoted to Lord Ram. To show the principle that, because Lord Ram was sent to the forest because taking his name, that he wanted to become the king. And to show the whole world that that was not the case, but he actually always considers himself to be a servant of Lord Ram, and to exemplify that, he took all the responsibilities but never took the facilities that came with it, the enjoyment that came with it. And it's very difficult. We just talked about it. How many of you are ready to work without remuneration? It's not easy. And that's the amount of sacrifice. And that's how he was devoted to Lord Ram, Bharat. And then there was Lakshman. Lakshman, it is said Lakshman is very wealthy. What is that? Lakshmano Lakshmi Sampanna. So Lakshmano Lakshmi Sampanna. So it says Lakshman is very, very wealthy. Right? But he went to the forest with Lord Ram. What do you mean he is wealthy? So what is wealthy? What is his wealth? What is Lakshman's wealth? Yes.
He's always with Lord Ram, so Lord Ram is his wealth.
Yeah, that's a good answer. But
I have
yeah.
service.
Excellent. Wow, amazing. Yeah, that's the correct answer. How is Lakshman wealthy? Even though he is residing in the forest with Lord Ram, he's wealthy because he has the privilege of devotional service. So devotional service is not something that's very cheap. Devotional service is not something very cheap. So when we get an opportunity to serve the Lord or the Lord's mission, we should consider ourselves fortunate. Because it's not so easy to get, it's a privilege to get service in the Lord's mission. It's a privilege. It's not that we are doing, sometimes we may be doing some service, we may think that I'm doing a favor for the Lord. Actually, it's not, that I'm doing a favor for the Lord. The Lord is kind enough to engage me in a service. I mean, it would have, how, for Lord Ram, does he need a whole Vanara army to kill Ravan and his whole army? Or does he need, the bridge to cross over to Lanka? No, he doesn't need any of these things. But the Lord actually is very kind. The devotees wants to serve the Lord. The Lord gives them opportunities to serve Him. And at the same time, the Lord also serves His devotees. So that is loving reciprocation between the Lord and His devotees. So one who has this opportunity to serve the Lord or serve the Lord's mission, then such a person is very, very fortunate. And so getting such devotional service, like for example tomorrow, if you come to the temple and then somebody asks you, can you please, wash the pots, then you should feel really, yes, this is Lord's service. I'm happy to do this service for the Lord. It's a privilege to do this for the Lord. And it's not so easily available. And then finally, Shatruguna. Shatruguna means one who's conquered all the enemies. That's correct. Yes.
So, like if we look at it, Shatruguna killed one enemy to
Right.
Lakshmana. So, that means like the internal enemy.
Correct. So the reason he is called a Shatruguna is because he's conquered the enemy internally. He's conquered the enemy internally, which means that he has conquered the enemy of the ego. The toughest enemy to conquer is the ego, which is very, very tough to conquer. So Shatruguna has conquered that. Shatruguna has conquered the ego. So that's why he is called as, he has conquered the enemy internally. So Lord Rama is the Supreme Lord. And Bharata and Lakshmana, of course, is his expansion, the Lord's expansion, the Lord's dear associate. And Bharata represents the servant of the Lord, and Shatrugna represents the servant of the Lord. Because Shatrugna was serving, who was he serving? Bharat. He was actually the servant of the Lord. Anyway, so that's the significance of different names of the four brothers. So here are some, quickly we'll go over some lessons, from So Balakanda, there is a lot more lessons, of course, we'll just, we can speak in Balakanda only. Why it's called Balakanda, anybody knows?
Because like the part where Rama was like
Yeah, Rama was a kid, that's correct. But how many pastimes of Lord Rama as a kid is there in Balakanda?
They wrote it.
Not many.
Ramayana.
In Ramayana,
Oh.
of course, Balakanda, generally the understanding is that, it actually the early pastimes, the childhood pastimes of Lord Ram. That's why it's called. Of course, Balakanda has some important sections, and then it ends actually at Lord Rama marrying Mother Sita and then coming back to Ayodhya. That's where the Balakanda ends. But then if you really look at the Balakanda, there are not many childhood pastimes that are described in Ramayana. Like how, Krishna Leela, there are so many stories after stories of childhood pastimes of Krishna are described in the Bhagavatam, in Krishna Leela, but in Ram Leela, not so many childhood pastimes are described. Then why does it still named Balakanda? So one of the reasons Acharya gave is, let me just quickly, I have to finish in the next 10-15 minutes. So, and then finally you can add the comments at the end.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, because it has Vishwamitra Maharshi's story.
Right.
He's called Bala because he's like childlike.
Right, exactly. So it is called as Balakanda because Vishwamitra's growth in a spiritual journey, right from a childlike state to all the way to a mature realization spiritually, that growth is actually covered in this Balakanda section of the Ramayana. That's why it's called as Balakanda. Another angle from which we understand is Vishwamitra's growth spiritually from his childlike state, spiritual state to a mature state. So that is why it's called as Balakanda. In fact, it's very, very nice actually. Vishwamitra, by this time, he had actually gone through so many experiences in his life where he had so many failures, so many tapasyas, so many wars, so many, he's gone through so much experience, and then he has become a Brahma Rishi at this point. And this is when he discovers that I have to surrender to the Supreme Lord, and I have to serve the Supreme Lord. That is the perfection of my life. And so Vishwamitra comes. Why does Vishwamitra come? Vishwamitra comes to actually, external reason is, that he wants to actually, seek the help of Lord Ram to kill Tadaka and other demons who are actually, destroying all the sacrifices and so on and so forth. But the internal reason is to actually serve Lord Ram and unite Lord Ram and Mother Sita. That is to serve Lord Ram in that way. So you can see in Vishwamitra's journey, he actually goes through many ups and downs in his spiritual journey. But then everything culminates in complete success when he offers everything as a service to Lord Rama. In fact, whatever weapons he had gotten, by performing many, many thousands years of tapasya, he actually hands it over to Lord Ram. So he offers everything, his whole life, and service to Lord Ram. And that brings about the maturation of the spiritual process. So that's why it is called as Balakanda. And then, of course, Ayodhya Kanda, it's there are many pastimes here, but one of the powerful lessons in Ayodhya Kanda is the power of association. That's one of the lessons here that we can learn from Ayodhya Kanda is especially with respect to Kaikeyi's the influence Kaikeyi received by associating with mantra. So the power of association. So as Krishna says, Sangat Sanjayate Kamaha. As our desires are formulated, our desires come about according to the association we have. That is the power of association, both good and bad. So just by associating with mantra for, I don't know for how much time, but for some time, Kaikeyi's mood completely changed. It was from where she was loving Lord Ram and she was so happy that Lord Ram was being crowned to completely being envious and being hateful of Lord Ram. And that is so we have to be very careful about our association. So association has this power to actually In fact, there is another gorilla also. You know, it comes in the Bhagavatam. You know, he was actually associate of Lord Rama, but of course, I think he offends some devotees. Right. Oh, he didn't respect Lakshmana. So he offends, the devotee of the Lord, Lakshman. And because of that, he had to get into bad association with, is this Banasur or Kalyavan? One of the two. He got into bad association, and then Banasur. He had this bad association with Banasur, and then being a devotee of the Lord, he became completely against the Lord. So one has to be very, very careful with regards to whom we associate with, and especially we have to make sure we associate with devotees. And anyway, there are many other lessons that we can talk about. Yeah, Bharat, ruling the kingdom, he was acting as a caretaker. So who is the real proprietor of?
Ram.
Yeah, the Lord is the supreme proprietor of everything. In fact, the Bhagavad Gita, 5th chapter, Krishna says, Bhoktaram yagyatapasam sarvaloka maheshwaram suhridam sarvabhutanam yatvam mam shantim rachate. Krishna says, Bhoktaram, I am the supreme enjoyer, I am the supreme proprietor. Sarvaloka maheshwaram, I am the supreme Lord of everything. So, one who understands this, and Krishna is the supreme proprietor, enjoyer, controller, then Krishna says one will attain peace. One will attain peace. So Bharata actually showcased this, that he, understood that Lord Rama is the supreme proprietor and he was only acting as a caretaker of the kingdom. So similarly, how do we deal with all the possessions we have in our life? Is it mine? Because I am the proprietor, right? Is it mine? No, I am just a caretaker. The Lord has given to me according to my karma, and I am just a caretaker. I am just a steward. I am just a good steward who can actually use this properly in the Lord's service. So I am just a caretaker. So that's what Bharata, shows, by his own example, that I am a caretaker, and I use it, Lord Rama is the real proprietor. I'm just only a caretaker. I'm not the enjoyer, because he didn't really want to enjoy all the facilities, but he just took care of everything as a caretaker. So that's how of course, when we come to the highest point of devotion, then we will be able to live like that. We should aspire to live like this. And who's the proprietor for all of our family members? I'm the proprietor, right? Who's the proprietor of all our family members? The Lord, the Supreme Lord is a proprietor. You may think, this is my husband, this is my wife, this is my children, and so on and so forth. But for how long? Ultimately, all of us belong to Krishna. Krishna says, Mamai Vamsho Jiva Loke, Jiva Bhuta Sanatanaha. So Krishna says that every living entity is my part and parcel. So, actually, we are not a proprietor of anything. We are not even the proprietor of our body. Right? This body has to be given, the body is given to us by the material nature. So what to speak of other things? We are not even the proprietor of the body. Right? So all we can be is a caretaker, where we can take care of things on behalf of the Lord, because He is the original proprietor of everything and everyone, including our own body. So, because He is a proprietor, what do we do with all the things that we have? We engage it in the service of the proprietor. We engage it in His service because it all belongs to Krishna. So we engage it in Krishna's service. And then lessons from Aranya Kanda, and a beautiful example of Jatayu. Right? What a beautiful example of Jatayu. He knew that he was going to get killed, but still he didn't care about it actually, because he didn't care about his own life, because there was higher calling. actually. And he understood the real purpose of life. Real purpose of life is, not at a material level. The real purpose of life is at a spiritual level, right? I mean, the problem with the material society is that we take the material aspect of life all in all, and we give complete 100% focus to the material aspect of life. But then, bigger than the material aspect of life is our spiritual aspect. And that's what Jatayu is demonstrating here. He was a failure from a material viewpoint. He was a complete failure from a material viewpoint. But from a spiritual viewpoint, he was a complete success. He was a success story actually. So he gave, and this is really love, right? He didn't even, again we talked about the three societies, right? This is real love. And we can see to some extent this exhibition of love between a mother and a child. So Prabhupada said the purest, we can see the sacred most, the purest form of love we can see is between a mother and a child. Because mother, she may be sleeping or maybe in deep sleep, but then when the child cries, what does she do? She just wakes up and then she goes through all the trouble to actually try to serve the child. And you can see that selflessness in that love. And that's purity of love. So Jatayu, he knew that he would be killed, but then how can his thinking is, how can I remain silent when my divine mother is getting carried by this demon? How can I remain silent? Right? So he actually fought valiantly, but unfortunately he was wounded very badly by Ravana, and then one of his wings were actually stripped off, and then he actually fell down, and then he was almost on the verge of dying, and he was waiting for Lord Ram to come so that he can give this message to Lord Ram. See, this is like amazing, such selflessness in the service. So service only for the sake of service, right? He didn't expect any remuneration from Lord Ram. This is the quality of service, right? He didn't expect, like Hanumanji, the quality of service. You can see service for service not for remuneration. What we do at workplace is not service for service, it's service for remuneration, right? So Jatayu gave up his own life. But of course, when I said gave up his own life, he actually, materially, of course, he was wounded, the material body was wounded. But because of that sacrifice, actually Lord Rama awarded him the highest benediction. And he sent him back to the spiritual world. So he got, the highest benediction spiritually. So this is a real success story. Because everything is going to be taken away materially. Materially we are all, we can have this insurance, that insurance, bank balance. But ultimately at the end of the day, everything is going to come down. At the end of life, everything is going to come down to zero. Big zero. Of course, that doesn't mean that we are indifferent to our material duties, but whatever we have, our abilities, our resources, the people we associate with, try to connect it with the service of the Supreme Lord. We try to connect it with the service of the Supreme Lord. That's what we try to do. Yes, bro.
Yeah, I think I also read or heard somewhere that in the Muhurt where Mother Sita was kidnapped, if Ravan actually was successful in that Muhurt, then he would actually succeed. And he wanted to engage Ravan.
So that the Muhurt is delayed.
And then he fails. That's why he engaged in the fight.
Yeah. That's a good point. Thank you for the detail. Yes, he actually wanted to delay Ravan kidnapping of Sita, because in that Muhurt Ravan would become successful. But then he wanted to delay that so that the next Muhurt, he would face defeat. That is also, but it's a principle of sacrifice. And there are many nice examples. And Shabari, that's another great example. She was so faithful to her Guru. Everybody in, do you remember the Guru's name? Matangi Rishi. He said, I'm going to the spiritual world with all my, so there are so many other disciples. So with all my disciples, except for you, you stay here. And then you wait for Lord Ram to come so that you can actually serve Lord Ram. And then he went back to the spiritual world. And then But Shabari, she had so much of dedication to her guru. She was so devoted to her guru that she stayed there for many years waiting for Lord Ram to come. Right? I mean, she didn't crib, I got the bad end of the deal. He could have actually kept the other person. She was actually, she was patient, determined and enthusiastic in her service. So she patiently waited for so many years for Lord Ram to come. Actually, Lord Ram came after many, many years. After Guru had disappeared, and then she served Lord Ram with all enthusiasm. And then she actually took the blessings of the Lord, and then she went to the spiritual world as well. So she shows devotion to Guru. She exemplifies devotion to Guru. And this is another. So, okay, the lesson from Kishkinda Kandam is, where actually Sugriva, first time he goes and meets Vali, what happens? Yeah, he gets thoroughly trashed, right? And then Lord Rama is just standing there and then watching everything, and then he goes away at one point. And then so Sugriva is totally bewildered, and then he comes and tells Lord Ram, "Oh my Lord, I was depending on you, but then, why didn't you kill Vali?" And then Lord Ram says, what does he say?
So basically, it's like he says that you disrespected Lakshman.
No, he didn't say that.
They both look like same.
That is the effect. But he says, you both look the same, so I couldn't distinguish who's who, right?
But he meant that because he said that because he didn't want Sugriva to feel sad. But really, like when Sugriva wanted to make an alliance with Ram, he got a tree branch to Lord Ram, and then he sat on the same tree branch, and he didn't even let another center, space for Lakshman.
Right.
But
So he didn't offer respect to Lakshman. So who is the devotee of the Lord? And here Lakshman also represents Guru. So first time when he went, he had the blessings of the Lord, but he didn't have the blessings of Guru. So he got thoroughly trashed. And then he came back, wondering what happened. So at that time when actually Sugriva forgot to respect Lakshman, at that time Hanumanji was there. So Hanumanji actually brought a tree branch, and then he made sure, of course, Sugriva made sure Lord Ram was properly respected, but he forgot about Lakshman. But then Hanumanji came, and then he offered a seat to Lakshman, and then made sure that all the respects were given to him as well. So next time, before going to fight, what does Lord Ram do? He actually asks Lakshman to put a garland on Sugriva. So after only receiving Guru's mercy, you will get the Lord's mercy. So first time he gets trashed because he didn't offer his respects to Guru. So another important lesson we can say, the importance of Guru. And Krishna also says in the Bhagavad Gita, Tad Viddhi Pranipatena Pariprashnena Sevaya Upadekshanti Te Jnanam Jnana Sattva Darshanaha. Tad Viddhi. Submissively, approach a Guru and who has seen the truth. And then Krishna says, inquire from them submissively, render some service. Be in a humble mode when you are approaching a Guru. And then Krishna says, when one approaches the Guru in that fashion, then the Guru will naturally become pleased, and they'll open their heart to give their blessings. So here Sugriva became successful after he received the blessings from Lakshman in the form of a garland. So one has to have the blessings of the Guru to really receive the blessings of the Supreme Lord. And this is also mentioned in the Guru Vashtakam, Yasya Prasada Bhagavat Prasado, Yasya Prasada Napratikatopi. So it says that when one pleases the devotee of the Lord, or the Guru, then what happens is the Supreme Lord automatically becomes pleased. Right? I mean, if you see somebody, this is not a, it's not an equivalent example, but an example nonetheless. Somebody is walking a dog, right? What do you if you want to have a good rapport with the person, what do? Yeah, you appreciate the dog. Oh, such a love. And then the person will just, even if you are told something about him, he wouldn't have, opened up so much. And then they would just, talk about the dog, and suddenly they'll become your best friend, actually. I mean, the same thing, when we please a devotee of the Lord who is very, very dear to the Lord, we please a guru who is very, very dear, bona fide guru, then the Lord automatically becomes pleased. So Sundarakandam, so is one of the, the most cherished. So that's why it's called as a beautiful kanda. Because Hanumanji's pastimes, all the pastimes are there of Hanumanji. His wonderful efforts, his dedication, his service, his humility. So many qualities of Hanumanji actually comes out in this kanda. And such a joy to read this kanda and learn different lessons that we can read. Here, of course, Hanumanji faces a lot of obstacles. He's going to find Mother Sita. He finds a lot of obstacles on the path. It's not a smooth path, but still he somehow overcomes all these obstacles and is determined and perseverant to actually find Mother Sita. So similarly, that's how we should be determined to reach our destination, which is, destination, perfection and Bhakti Yoga. That is our destination. We may face a lot of obstacles, but we should be determined to continue, even though there are many obstacles. We should not ask the question, some problem comes, then, sudden, the general tendency, the human tendency is, Krishna, I've been, chanting so many rounds, or chanting your holy names and doing fast on Saturdays. Did you miss some records? The question naturally comes, why these obstacles are coming? I'm doing so much for you. Are you listening? Are you here? I mean, is there God? All these questions starts coming. But obstacles, are meant to make us stronger and overcoming the challenges. So obstacles, we cannot expect a smooth ride. There will be obstacles even on devotional path. So one has to overcome all those obstacles and still persevere on the path. I mean, if you cannot persevere on the path, then what's the point? Right? So one has to persevere on the path. So finally, I think, there are many lessons in Yuddha Kanda. Vibhishan's taking shelter is one of the key lessons there. Sharanagati. Vibhishan, he saw that how, he was actually disrespected, he was mistreated, and so on and so forth. That became, of course, he never gelled with, the demoniac, forces there. He was never one among them, actually. In fact, there's a funny story, there's a funny story, actually, because there's a funny story. Vibhishan is actually always chanting the Lord's name. But Ravana is so powerful and he's so egoistic that he wants him to be worshipped in all of Lanka, in fact all over the universe, but he's not able to accomplish all over the universe. But he wants himself to be worshipped everywhere. So at least in Lanka he wants, himself to be worshipped. But then he gets the news that, there is Vibhishana is actually, secretly chanting, Rama, Rama, and then they are hearing this, vibration, spiritual vibration and worshipping of Lord Vishnu from Vibhishana's palace, and that, there's something going wrong there. And then Ravana becomes very angry, and then he thinks, oh really? So are you sure that you heard, he makes sure that, and then they verify, yes, we heard the sound of Rama, in Vibhishana's palace. And then he immediately goes to Vibhishana, and then he says, all the soldiers are saying that they heard Rama's name here. How dare you chant Rama's name? He's my sworn enemy. And then, you should be, chanting my name, instead of Rama's name. Is that true that you are chanting Rama's name? And then Vibhishana said, yeah, I was actually chanting, Rama, but you don't understand what Rama means. And then he said, Rama means, Ra in Rama means Ravan. And Ma in Rama means Mandodari. So I was chanting, since I wanted to really chant, and worship you. I actually found the short form and then I started chanting Rama. Anyway, it's a funny story. And then Ravana gets very happy. Oh, yeah. He's so egoistic that he wants everybody to worship him, and then he goes back. But then, so Ravana, Vibhishan never dwelt with this demoniac mentality, because his mentality was a devotee mentality. And then the whole, what happened in that assembly hall, he basically cut, the connection, the familial connection that he had. And then it really, he was contemplating a long time how to surrender to the Lord, then gave him an opportunity to do that. So he took that opportunity, immediately went and fell at the feet of Lord Ram and completely surrendered to Lord Ram. So Sharanagati, of course there are 6 symptoms of Sharanagati, but we will go over that in another session. Shyam Prabhu already looked at me a few times. So I thought I'll go till 9, but he has rejected that request. He's on your side. Anyway, we'll stop there and then we'll continue with the rest of the program, and he will lead us through the rest of the program. Yeah, so now we will do chanting. So one of the best ways, I said, we have to establish these principles in our heart that Lord Rama represents, and Rama himself represents. And one of the best ways we can do is to chant the holy name of the Lord. And, as the Bhagavatam says, Srimata Saukata Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtana Hridayantasto hi abhadrani vidunoti suratsata Nashtaprayeshu abhadreshu nityam Bhagavata seveya Bhagavati uttama sloke bhaktir bhavati nakshti. So Bhagavatam says, Srimata Swakta Krishna. Right now we were having Krishna Katha. When we hear about Krishna Katha, Srimata Swakata Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtanaha. It's a very virtuous activity. It's a divine activity because there is spiritual sound vibration that's emanating from these katha. Hridayantasto hi abhadrani. Abhadrani means what? Abhadra means not wanted. So Hridayantasto, so our heart has a lot of unwanted things, right? It has so many unwanted things. We have many. So Ravana may be a figure in Lanka, but we all have little Ravana inside of us. Do you agree?
Yes.
Okay. So we all have some tiny Ravanas within us, where we become angry, we become egoistic, we become lusty, and so many, such demoniac tendencies are there in our heart.
We have Hanuman also in us.
Yeah. We have some good qualities also. We have some divine qualities also. But many times, these demoniac qualities overpower the divine qualities. Right? But sometimes the divine qualities also come out. So, to wipe out these demoniac qualities within our heart, what we have to do, we have to take the Lord's name. Like how Lord Rama came and destroyed Ravana. So similarly, when we take the Lord's name, the Lord actually, he appears in our heart. He's already there, but he appears, he becomes visible in our heart. He destroys all these demoniac tendencies, all these abhadras, our inauspicious qualities that binds us to this material world. There's so many inauspicious qualities that we have that binds us to this material world. So Krishna or Rama, they come and destroy all these ignorance, starting from avidya. They destroy all these inauspicious things in our heart. And when our heart becomes pure. And then we become spiritually focused in that stage. So this chanting of the holy names actually helps us to cleanse our heart, the mirror of the mind and heart, for all these abhadras, these demoniac tendencies, and fill it with virtuous divine qualities. And with, of course, devotional qualities as well. So this is the importance of chanting of the holy names, and this is the prescribed method of self-realization in this Kali Yuga. So we can actually chant in unison. You want to say something? Oh, okay. So we can all chant in unison, and the idea is to focus on the mantra. Because it's spiritual sound vibration, it has a spiritually awakening effect on us. Like how material sound has an entangling effect on us, spiritual sounds has a spiritually awakening effect on us. So we will start with the prayer to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his associates. So I will say,